U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting now with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. It comes just one day after President Trump once again shifted his stance on Ukraine, now saying he believes Kyiv can reclaim land occupied by Moscow. That statement marks a dramatic U-turn from just last month when Donald Trump said that Ukraine would need to give up some territory to strike a peace deal with Russia. Joining us now to talk more about this is global affairs analyst Michael Bociurkiw. Michael, good to see you. Wanted to get your reaction first to what we heard from President Zelensky at the United Nations just a couple of hours ago. He appealed for more military aid and warned that, quote, we're entering the most destructive arms race in human history, pointing to drones, nuclear risks, and even artificial intelligence, basically summing up by saying this war has proven to be very costly. They're very appreciative for all the support and help, but continuing the war would be even more costly in terms of just overall expenditure and obviously the human toll and the loss of human lives as well. How effective do you think that speech was?
Good to be with you, Bianna. Pretty good, although I would have frankly been much more blunt a la Donald Trump and said, you know what, European leaders, wake up, smell the coffee, because if Mr. Putin is allowed to take Ukraine and go further, he will, and that will be the end of Europe. It will not only be the end of Ukraine, it will be the end of Europe. And Bianna, that was the clear message I just got. I came out of a closed door briefing of experts and former US military officials, and they said the problem is a lot of European leaders just can't get into their heads that if Ukraine isn't given everything it needs to stop Mr. Putin, that's the end of Europe. The other thing, quickly, I wish he would have been a bit tougher on Mr. Trump, is that Mr. Trump still seems to think that Mr. Putin can be charmed. He can't. He can't be persuaded. He's not malleable. He wants all of Ukraine. So it isn't looking good at the moment. And, a lot of the problem, of course, as you well know, is a lot of European allies do not have the wherewithal financially or militarily just to flip the switch and send everything to Ukraine.
Or politically as well. And it was interesting to hear President Zelensky spend a great deal of his speech talking about Moldova, obviously a very vulnerable country, given that it is not a member of NATO or the EU, currently being protected essentially by Ukraine, and saying that this is where Putin has his sights on and set on. They have a critical parliamentary election coming up just this weekend. Maya Sandu, the country's democratically elected president, warned that independence of Moldova and all of Europe is at risk here. Dozens were arrested by what they said were Russian-backed plotters trying to stir political violence and unrest ahead of these elections. What did you make of that?
Yeah, well, I go to Moldova a lot because I'm based in Odessa. In fact, border guards on both sides recognize me. But the feeling I picked up from what she has said, but really crucially, I think, from people really in the know in Chisinau, is that things are not looking good at the moment. You're absolutely right. The Russians have poured in millions and millions and millions. And it's not only the money, Bianna, it's also the sophistication of their techniques that they've done in other countries, but now they're doing in Moldova big time. For example, paying people to pose as reporters to get people to say things they want, and also really dominating platforms such as Facebook, which is really widely used in Moldova, and TikTok. So we may see a replay of what happened in Romania next door, where someone gets through, so certain parties get through because they had the advantage online. The other thing Maya Sandu said to her speech to the European Parliament just a few weeks back, she said, unfortunately, Europeans, your election observation missions are not mission ready, purpose fit for today's day and age. Election observers come there just before the election, they document what's happened, and they tell the world. But you have to be there a long time before to catch these bad actors, what they're doing, and then take steps to counter it. But we're not at that point right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Moldova recently being accepted, towards the pathway for EU acceptance. At this point, though, much bigger hurdles for the country ahead with these elections, continued interference by Russia, and as we noted, quite stunning that they are literally being protected by Ukraine as Ukraine continues to be on the receiving end of more and more attacks by Russia. What do you think, if anything, is going to come out of this meeting between Marco Rubio and Sergei Lavrov? I mean, it was Marco Rubio when asked yesterday whether the U.S. or whether NATO allies, in his view, should strike down Russian aircraft. I think he sort of leaned towards no until the president freelancing said yes. None of this would involve U.S. Interference. But nonetheless, that was quite a change in tone from President Trump. Do you think that Marco Rubio has picked up some cues from that going into this meeting? Well,
this is an interesting one, Bianna, because what also happened a few hours after Trump's speech, where he said Ukraine should regain everything, all of its territory, should win the war, Marco Rubio contradicted him and said, well, actually, this war will be settled at the diplomatic table, possibly indicating that the land swap thing is still in play. I don't expect much to come out of this meeting. Mr. Lavrov, AKA the Marlboro Man, has been at this game for a long, long time. What he's going to do is just repeat the Russian narrative that, it's Ukraine that is the problem. They're the ones bombing civilians and stuff like that. But there's something that neither Mr. Lavrov or Mr. Putin can control, it seems, and that is Ukraine's incredible use of drone technology with lots of firepower and lots of range to bomb the Russian war machine, the Russian economy, especially those petrochemical facilities. I heard a figure in that closed-door briefing, Bianna, about 25% of Russian capacity is gone. And of course, that's what they rely on to fund their war machine. And you're also hearing stories in the outer regions, at least for now, of long lineups at gas stations. So Ukrainians have done a great job in bringing the war to the doorsteps of ordinary Russians. Whether that will translate into persuading Putin one way or the other to change his tactic, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, Putin doubling down on war spending, including on drone warfare of their own as well, building them at home as opposed to just relying on Iran for those drones. Michael Bociurkiw, thank you so much. Good to see you.